I know that, you are a woman who stays busy. You have, your travel company, you have your books, you have all this other stuff, you have a kid, you have all these things going on. Like how do you find the time like to do all this stuff? Like, you said you have another book coming out here in a couple weeks. Like how long did that take you and how are you able to keep up with all this?
It's thankfully, I mean, not filming an aggressive network television show has helped a lot with my time. Even though I do have a new show coming out in the fall, but like that's on Beacon TV, like a streaming that took us, took us a week and a half to film, although they are coming here in a couple of days to film some pickups. But besides that, that's made it a lot easier. So I just work from home and it's really enabled me to be very present for Charlotte, but it does take a lot. Like Food to Die For took 3 years to write. Cuisine to Kill For took 2 years to write. And so it's, thankfully I have a wonderful team at my publisher that makes it all happen with me. And I have a great support system, but I definitely am one of those people, and people who work with me will know this, that like I need wrangling.
Right.
I'm super ADHD and I need to be wrangled because I have so many ideas and big things happening, but I need people around me to like sit me down and make sure I make podcasts or I do this meeting and that meeting and I schedule time for this writing and that, and so without really amazing people in my life, it wouldn't happen. I guarantee it.
The book that you have coming out at the end of the month, so the audience knows what it is, where to find it, all that kind of stuff. Tell us just a little bit about it. I mean, we already covered it a little bit, but just so we have this as a separate clip.
This is important, right? So it's Cuisine to Kill For. It's recipes and true crime stories from the world's most haunted places. Here it is. It's beautiful. Yay. I don't know if it'll be the right direction, but
that's a thick book, by the way.
It's beautiful. Like, I mean, the photography in here is just, it's amazing. Like I'm obsessed. I don't do the photography clearly. I have an amazing design team at the publisher that does it. And they I cry like when they send me the dailies of their shoots. It's just, I can't believe what they do in there. They have a studio in Nashville and they just go in and they cook. I've cooked every recipe except for the meat ones. I have someone who tests the meat recipes for me. So I've made everything and they have to make it all and photograph it all. It's a whole process, but so they're actually making the food. I guess that makes sense because you have to have a picture of it, right? So they make it, I test it first, right? Like, so we test every recipe. So sometimes that testing process can be, multiple tries, sometimes I'll have like for Pennhurst Asylum, actually, there's a recipe in here called shrimp wiggle from Pennhurst.
I heard about the shrimp wiggle.
The recipe that I found for that, it was in their cookbook that they used to cook for the patients there. And, it was for 50 people. And so I had to pare it down to make it, something that we could make for, a family of 4 or whatever. But what was so sad about it was that the actual recipe for shrimp wiggle had 50 shrimp. So literally it was like 1 shrimp per person.
Right.
Was so sad. So you can put as many shrimp as you want into
I would hope so. I mean, down here, they don't hold back. If you get a shrimp sandwich, I will say that's one of the good things about Louisiana. I do like shrimp. And if you get like a shrimp sandwich, they'll put like 183 shrimp on that sandwich.
And that's just it. I just feel like at Pennhurst Asylum where, they were criminally prosecuted for mistreating their patients. Right. They didn't really care about how many shrimp the people got. So, but every recipe comes from some sort of historic haunt with really interesting criminal history. And I always tell people that 90% of the recipes are delicious. And then there's like that 10% that's like very historic. So just like set your expectations. Some of them are more like not probably going to taste the best, but you will live like they did for a brief moment. But most of them are just amazing. So
when I think of historical meat dishes, I always think of like those ones with like the gelatin. And it was like the wiggly,
gosh, those 50s ones.
Oh my God, those look so gross.
No, I do not have any of those in here. The closest one I have is it's a kind of a key lime pie, but it's not key lime. It's from an inn in Kentucky, and the name is escaping me, but that's the closest. The only thing that has gelatin in the whole thing, but there's no like ham in it or anything. It's just actually a dessert.
Oh, well, there you go. Let's say, people really aren't interested in cooking. I mean, I imagine that, this book could still be for them as well. Like maybe people who are into history and all that other stuff. So even if they're not into cooking, why should people be interested in your book?
Thanks for saying that, because that's absolutely true. Like, so every recipe comes with there's a whole story of the history of the location and then all the haunts that are associated with it. And so there is such a storytelling aspect to this book that I actually did an audio version as well. And so, if people don't want to cook it all, every history and recounting of paranormal activity at each location is completely separate. And then you have the recipe that has a little blurb as to its source and why it's connected to it. Yeah. So you can literally not even look at the recipes and just go through and read a really great book about history and ghosts and true crime.
Well, I'll definitely be picking up a copy. And I actually do.
I'm assuming they should have sent you one.
Oh, they might have, but we might add that to the library. We have a library here. At Ghost City, but I have a library at my house too. I'm always 9,000 books is not enough. I need more.
So you're in Louisiana. So New Orleans is featured at the Court of Two Sisters. Their barbecue shrimp recipe is in it.
Well, I think they're the ones, and Carter's going to correct me because he loves Louisiana so much with all his heart. Aren't they the ones that invented barbecue shrimp?
I feel like maybe yes.
I think so, but I'm not sure.
Sure, let's go with that.
Okay. Well, if Carter says it's the truth,
don't hold me to it. It's fact check me, please.
I honestly have no idea.
Actually you might be right, because that is their signature thing. Yeah. And then I went there recently and they didn't have it, and I was like, what? But it's in here.
Maybe they ran out of shrimp.
Maybe you ate them all.
Yeah, they could only get those Chinese shrimp in that they're getting now in Louisiana, and there's this big thing. But boo, Chinese shrimp. So you got the book coming out. I also noticed on social media you were very excited to be working on another project. That's the one that you said about with Beacon Films or Beacon, whatever they're called.
Beacon TV.
Beacon TV. So in the 3 minutes that we have left, so that was in Placerville, right?
Yeah, so El Dorado County. So it's in El Dorado, California, which is near Placerville. It's a very small town that a lot of people are not familiar with, but it's also where my whole family lives. We moved there when I was in high school. Yeah. And so I go back there all the time, and I have know a lot of local business owners and whatnot. And so we went and investigated the whole town. I brought Adam Berry with me, and then Sarah Lamos and Amanda Paulson. We had this incredible team, and we just kind of descended on the town and filmed it and dug into the history and talked to. And so at the end of it, we presented all of our findings in history to a town hall. They all came to the town, and it was really fun. So I that comes out in the fall. I don't have a premiere date for it. I don't even have an official title for it yet, but people can just follow my social, and I'm sure I'll be shouting it from the rooftops when I know more.
No, that'll be really interesting. I like that concept, kind of investigating a whole town and then presenting it to the people. Because one, it's hey, this is where you live. You might not know this about where you live, but look at what we found out. Kind of giving them more insight in their town.
And they trust me too, because it's one of those kind of towns where you walk into the local bar and everybody stops and stares at you, but they all know who I am because I've bet, my stepfather owned property there for many years and was a local businessman. And so everybody they trusted me with it, which I really, really value. Yeah. So I can't wait for people to see it.
If you enjoyed this clip from the Ghost City podcast, be sure to check out the full episode right here on the Ghost City Tours YouTube page. Subscribe to our channel for new spooky content every week.